Okay, mic is on. We are recording. One, two, three. Hello and welcome to the Bread Slice Christian Podcast, where we talk. See, I can never memorize it. That's why I have to write it down.
I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
I would do the exact same thing.
Welcome to the Bread Slice Christian Podcast, where we have real conversations with real people about having Jesus in everyday life. As usual, I am your host, Alex, and today I am so happy to have here our friends from church and friends in real life, Ethan and Morgan. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Happy to have you here. So, you guys heard, if you guys heard the other episodes, we'd like to start a conversation with you guys. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, who you are, your passions, deepest darkest secret. I always like to lead with that. Always a good icebreaker. So,
There you go.
whoever would like to go first?
Love, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. My name is Ethan Schneider. I've been a Christian pretty much my entire life. There was a short period where I was a little naughty, but since I was a child, I was raised. We actually both went to the same parochial school from pre-K to 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
Although I am 4 years older than her. So we were kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, indoctrinated in it, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
You know? And then, we. That's
Knew
about
each
it.
other in passing. I mean, I knew his family. I knew his parents from different events at school or at church, and then his younger sister I knew here and there, and then his brother fished with a couple times. But yeah,
Her mom always thought I was handsome.
that cute kid playing soccer in the church parking lot, our school parking lot. But
And apparently so did she, because, you guys are together now. So,
I know it all came together in the end. So
yeah. I mean, the magnificent beard.
I
mean,
know.
I guess as a kid you didn't have the beard, but
Basically,
I don't know if I was
picture-
into your coconut head hair.
I know. We had our phases.
what?
We had the phases. If you could picture, imagine whoever's listening.
So you ever watch Ned's
Basically,
Declassified
Chris
School Survival Guide?
Stapleton, too.
Do you know the show I'm talking about? Ned's Declassified
I think
School
so.
Survival
Yeah.
Guide.
Yeah.
There was a character on that show named Coconut Head,
Oh my gosh.
and he had a haircut that looked like a coconut, and that is what her haircut
That
looked
was
like
me in
as a
fourth
child.
grade. And that's okay that he didn't
Are
look
there
my
any,
way in
are
fourth
there
grade.
any pictures of this?
Oh my goodness. I could probably
She could probably
a
find one.
couple.
I mean,
find a
this
couple.
is an audio-only podcast, so I don't know
Yeah.
how much that helps the listeners.
I mean, for my own.
Oh
for
my
my own
goodness.
amusement.
Listeners, just Google coconut head
Coconut
and-
head.
and
Picture
you'll-
school
that
picture
was my
day.
wife in-
Yes.
in 3rd grade.
And I thought I was just the cutest thing ever. I went to school, the pink and brown shirt on picture day, all blow dried out. My mom was a hairstylist, so we
Failed.
approved. I approved it, and also she did. So, oh my goodness.
I was just gonna say, did you approve of this?
Oh yeah, I actually asked for it. And those bangs
You're like,
that I had, they stuck
Give
for
me
about
that.
15
Give me that
years.
coconut supreme, fam.
Oh my goodness.
Coconut Supreme.
Oh my goodness.
Uh,
yeah, that
yeah.
was me.
And how about you, Morgan?
Well, as he said, we grew up in at the same school in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I mean, again, like him, I've been a Christian my whole life. And in both, my parents are divorced. So in both houses, we had, Jesus talk all the time, and I went to church every Saturday, at I would consider my church. And then at my mom's church, I would go on Sundays. So I got Jesus all weekend.
Although her mom is Mormon, which is interesting.
Yeah, Mormon LDS. And so I had a lot of religious background, from the start, and, questioned faith, and in a good way, in a healthy way from a young age. So, so as he said, we're 4 years apart, and I was in 4th grade while he was in 8th grade.
I suppose for a job I work in IT, which is really fun. Work on a service desk I don't know if I need to say, but and then I also I build computers on the side, which is really fun. I can plug that later maybe.
Exactly. Go ahead. Give it a plug.
It's PCmonster.gg. Even if you're listening far away, you want to check out some of my builds, you can go to PCmonster.gg and check them out.
And I've seen them. They're pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Pretty
thank you.
impressive. Yeah.
Go ahead
I,
and tell
I
me.
I was wanted to ask you like what I asked you on a group that prank that I saw of this guy who puts
Say that again?
beans. I wanted to ask you about the prank that this I saw this prank on a video. This guy who puts beans inside a PC, then calls the IT guy and it's like, what is this? My computer is not working.
Oh
And the
my
IT guy
goodness.
opens the computer and there's a bunch of beans inside of the
Oh yeah,
computer.
you were telling me about that.
Yeah.
That's
I wonder
Oh
what
my
would
goodness.
your response be? Like you open like that and then you see food inside the computer.
On the outside, he would look very poised, but on the inside, he would just be
yeah. I think
questioning
I'd be laughing maniacally on the inside. On the outside, I'd kind of be like,
This
Interesting.
This is odd.
This is not
normal.
usual. Yeah. So tell us guys a little bit more about, how do you Morgan, you mentioned about having questions.
Yeah.
When was it a pivotal point in your life when you think, well, there's gotta be more? Like what's all about this? Like for me personally, growing up Catholic, I never like the rituals and all that never made sense in my
Sure.
brain. And for a while it kind of led me away from any religion. And it made me I consider myself an atheist because, if sin really like there was no explanation, people were really odd about it, and always thought to myself, why do people do this?
Sure.
So did you have any point in your life when you're like, well, what is this about? Like, do I follow this or do I not?
Sure. I think it started, I mean, in school, we always had larger topics that we debated and, Christ-like classes, and, that was what they were called, in our school. But I would say probably in about 6th or 7th grade, whenever I started confirmation classes, that really got my brain going and thinking about all sides of any argument, But, yeah, I mean, it would probably be confirmation class. There are a lot of hard questions that that we were asked and had to have an answer for, be prepared to give an answer. So, and if we're wanting to be confirmed in a faith that we felt strongly about, I think that's natural to have questions. And our teachers were so willing to be asked so many questions, and kids, always have questions.
Yeah.
But specifically about faith, it's very important to have answers to those, because those are about your, destination at the end of all this. So I would say, 6th or 7th grade kind of started.
Do you remember any question in specific, that kind of nagged at you? Like, is God real, or is God good, or, anything like that, like at that young age?
Yeah. I think I would say, that's a tough question because I had so many. I think it really went from 0 to 100 whenever I went into that class, and I'm like, wow, this is what we believe. This is what I want to dive into, and I'm not sure if there's a specific one, but I just remember so many flooded in at once, and just kind of snowballed from there. And I love that about faith, that there's so many questions and you can have them answered, or what?
There are answers.
May not be the answer that you want, but it's the answer that is necessary to hear sometimes. So,
I think that biggest question, for me at least, was why us? Like, why is being a Wells Lutheran the right one? When there's Catholicism, there's Pentecostal, there's Presbyterian, Baptist, and then there's other religions, Islam and Hinduism. Like, well, why is ours correct? That was probably the biggest question that I ever. I'm not the only one to have that question for sure, but that was one that always kind of got me, and it still kind of gets me sometimes too. So
that's absolutely a great question, because growing up, and once I knew that Christ was real, I get questions from like if I bring it up, people will ask you questions. So they will be like, so what makes you think that Jesus is the answer? What makes you think that he's the real God? Like, there's a lot of gods, so what makes you think that yours is the real one? And to be honest, earlier in my walk, I had no clue. I just knew it in my heart, and how do you explain that to somebody? How do you make other people understand that if it makes sense in your heart? I feel like that is what culture is all about nowadays. If it makes sense in your heart, go for it. But there's also truth. There's subjective and there's objective truth. So which one is it? And God is the truth. I always share that. I share with you guys in group that at first I had my doubts with the Bible, and I pray to God like, I know that you're real. Tell me what is real. So I feel like in my search, instead of relying on my own understanding, on other people's understanding of the world, it is important to go to the Father and say, "You tell me what's true."
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys have any point like that in your faith?
What would you say?
Can you narrow down the question a little bit?
Yeah, like when like you said, what makes you think, or what is it about your faith that makes it truth? Like, what was it for you that kind of solidified that fact? When you're like, if there's so many religions, what makes mine the truth?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I think we had talked about this in group just on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was how accurately Christianity, the Bible, relates to the human condition, and more specifically to sex, is one of them. Because, people always criticize Christianity for being too uptight, especially when it comes to something like sex. Like, we shouldn't have sex before we're married. Even if you've been in a relationship for a long time, or even if you're engaged, like you don't want to live together, all that kind of fun stuff. But there's always been a reason for that, because sex is something that's meant to pair bond us when we have children. That's the reason sex feels so good. It's almost like a drug, right? And God made it to be that way on purpose, and tells us that we shouldn't abuse it, because if we do, bad things can happen, like unwanted pregnancies. It makes it harder for people to pair bond, especially women, if you have sex with too many different partners. We're meant to kind of just have sex with one partner. And they actually say, I've heard some studies that say the more sexual partners, specifically a woman has, the less likely it is for them to get in a relationship and stay in a relationship. So that's one of the main things that kind of really solidified Christianity for me, is realizing that. And how I had mentioned that I had been a little naughty in the past, that
His escapades.
yeah. Sex
You
is one
call
of those
that?
things that I was naughty with, and I definitely noticed the I suffered the consequences for that one many times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a big one for me, for sure.
Awesome.
I'm not sure if there really was a specific moment. Like I mentioned, for years I've been a Christian, so I think it's really been being so much stronger in it as I went along in life, rather than a specific moment. And I think that's the beauty of anybody's faith, really, is that it can be anytime, anywhere, and it can happen at any age. So I think as I got older, I really focused on strengthening it, because as you get older, so many things can come your way or happen to you or happen to family, friends, and I wanted to have, as much as I could, the strongest faith I could, and really rely on that. And that's probably the biggest thing that I would say, is that it's so resilient. I think I've found that it's very resilient, and that I lean on it the most, and I'm learning in the best times, but mostly in the worst, I would say, honestly. But because it's so easy to not praise God, I guess, in the best times, and it happens mostly we're like, please God, do something, when he does, you're like, whew, good to go, all right, let's continue with life. But yeah, I don't know if there was a specific moment, but kind of strengthened as I went along.
That's beautiful, because I feel like same with me with the Word of God. It's always the strongest thing that we can rely on, and compared to before I knew him, I always used to rely on my own understanding, like my own resourcefulness, how smart I am, or relying on my own. And at some point in my life, I had a lot of anxiety. Like, I remember knowing true and deep anxiety for the first time, and I felt like I was stripped of all of those things in my life that made me confident. So at some point I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense, like what I have it's not sufficient for me. And it took me a while to actually go to God and say, you know what, I need you. So, you know, I always like to compare myself before I know Christ and now that I know Christ. And I feel like finding peace in Him, it's a lot better than finding peace, let's say, on medication. You know, I'm not saying that that doesn't work. It
Sure.
absolutely works for a lot of people. But I feel like it goes deeper than that, or meditation, or some friendships, because everything kind of passes in this life except for Him.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So now that you guys know Christ, like, what would you say has changed in your life?
Whew. I feel like a lot of things. A lot of things have changed. What would you say?
I think that, just about 4 or 5 years ago, I was on a pretty dark path. Shortly before we started dating, and even a little bit during. For context, I had been a music producer and DJ for, I think I started in about 2015, 2016, and then it continued on through. I think I slowly tapered off, but I think I finally quit. And it was all quiet. I didn't announce anything, but probably 2021 or 22. So there's a good 5-6 years I was very heavily involved in the music industry. I was doing a lot of drugs, specifically for the first part of it was weed. I smoked a ton of weed. I would wake up every day, smoke weed.
Wake and bake,
yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
I was heavily, they always say, I don't know if you've ever heard people say you can't get addicted to weed, but that's so untrue. I was so heavily addicted to marijuana.
It's just like I said, I'm not addicted to. I'm not an alcoholic. I just like to get drunk 5 times a week.
Yeah.
No.
That's not
I can
interesting.
quit anytime I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I would feel horrible if I didn't have weed. There were a couple times during that time where I didn't have any, and I felt horrible.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, I kind of stopped smoking weed shortly before we started dating, I think. And then I got really heavily into cocaine. Just about every weekend I would go out.
Yeah.
It's probably doing cocaine, ketamine, drinking. Sometimes I would smoke weed.
That's a pretty dark place.
Yeah, I did a lot of things I probably shouldn't have.
How do you justify that in your mind? Like, because I know when we don't know what we're doing, we kind of make excuses to ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you justify that in your own head? Like, you're doing cocaine, you're doing ketamine. How do you process that in your own head? Did you think you have a problem, or were you like, oh, I'm just having fun?
Yeah, I'm just having fun. Like, we're just having a good time. Like,
Yeah.
who
Just
for
cares?
the
I'm not hurting
weekend,
anybody.
you know?
Your classic excuses. I always kind of knew it was wrong in the back of my head. But the other thing I would do to justify it is the music industry, especially with electronic music, where I was doing it, is a lot of people are very, very nice, very kind. I did like the community for that aspect, but very godless. Not very many Christians at all. I can think of maybe one, and I don't even know who he is. Maybe a couple more.
Maybe in
There's some people who maybe
passing,
believe in God, but it's very hippie culture, very spiritualism. People are into rocks and stuff like that, and
like New Age stuff.
or
very
or
modernish.
what is it? Astrology. Astrology is pretty popular in that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crystals are people charging their crystals at night and stuff, and I mean it's
Under the moon.
yeah.
I know about that.
Yeah.
To put him to bed.
Yeah.
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 So one of my justifications is okay, I'm a Christian and I'm infiltrating the evil electronic music scene and trying to, because I still would talk about my faith if people asked me about it for sure, if I got the opportunity, but it's also hard to profess Christianity when you're putting white stuff up your nose too.
Exactly.
But that was probably the main justification. And yeah, again, like you guys said, just I'm just having fun, no big deal.
Not doing it during the week. I mean, and I will say that
it was very much a binge thing.
Yeah.
Every weekend I go out. You go to a show. I mean, you go to a green room. I mean, there's
it's just there.
drugs
and
aplenty.
Or it's not hard to find it. And I think I saw that and was a little curious. I mean, at the beginning, whenever we first started dating, it was harmless. I was like, oh, it's just once on the weekend, but then it'll stop. Or maybe I can try it once, or maybe next weekend I can do it again. And I think that also was the reason why I justified it too, was just, it's just for the weekend. So,
Yeah.
How did that impact you guys, like physically and spiritually, like the party scene?
Whew. What
Because
did impact? Yeah.
because I identify with that as well. Like, oh, I'm just gonna do it on the weekend. But then I remember feeling the consequences, not just a physical hangover, but also spiritual. Because
Sure.
I felt dirty. I felt like, and I also justified it. I was just having fun. Like, it's not a big deal.
Right.
And then do it again and still like kind of feel bad about it, kind of feel convicted in a way. So how did that affect you guys? Like after that, like the not just the physical but the spiritual hangover. Did you guys feel convicted or what was that like?
In the beginning, when I was just smoking a lot of weed, this was when I was I went to a small college in Madison. My second year there, I only went there for 2 years. My second year there is when I got really heavily into marijuana, and that persisted for about 3 years or 4 years, I think. And that whole time, man, is just like a blur. And I don't know if it's hard for me to say if I was smoking so much weed because I was sad or if I was sad because I was smoking so much weed. Probably a little bit of both. I remember, I think the reason I was doing it is because I was feeling very lonely. I really wanted like a good girlfriend and a wife, and it was kind of hard to get there. But doing that all the time really just, it kind of just, how do I say it? It kind of completely got rid of my personality, my identity, because I was just stoned like all the time. And it was similar with partying on the weekends after I got out of smoking weed and just doing other drugs. Like I would feel, I'd get home and I'd be like, man, what did I just spend all my time and money doing? Was that really worth it? I mean, yeah, I guess I went out and showed people my music and like networked and stuff, which is technically good, but was it worth it? Like, is this what I really want? What I kind of started to figure out was what I really want is to get married and have a nice family and just hang out,
Just
have a small sphere of influence. So kind of went a bit above and beyond your question, but I would say it really, just kind of eliminated my identity a bit.
How do you feel, Morgan? What was it, kind of similar, or how do you cope with that? How was that, the feeling after the partying, and when you go back to the world and you're like, okay, before that weekend, before doing it again, what was that like?
I think it was easier whenever we had a lot more friends in that scene each weekend. I think we found our crowd pretty easily because we were in the environment of that space. So whenever things would come up that, we were working a weekend or we had family things to do or whatever, I mean, we don't have to do them, but I wanted to because I love family. And I think that really, I think I almost had to choose between having a more sober life. I guess, occasionally I can have, a drink, but I think it's kind of hard to say because it kind of happened gradually. I mean, I don't know if it was a specific moment. I think it just felt very draining every single weekend going to, wherever and not knowing who we'd see or what we'd, ingest, I guess you can say. And I saw that it was taking a toll on my mental health, and I've never been in that. I really looked at it from like a bird's eye view, and I'm like, this is what I'm doing. I've never in my life would I have pictured that I would have been doing that. But having a partner that recognizes it with me and recognizes that it just long term, it just isn't sustainable. It's not stable, So I think that I'm glad that we both kind of came to that realization, like, well, job is very important, so let's keep working and let's hang out with family and friends that really matter as well. You know, the people that we have in the scene are our friends matter as well, but we had to choose, I think, and Jesus was definitely the answer. He's always the answer. And,
I have this theory that the whole reason I was doing music was to get a pretty girlfriend and then marry her. And the reason,
I mean, it kinda
and
worked.
something that kind
Kinda
of,
worked, not
something
gonna lie.
that kind of
Serve its
supports.
purpose.
there you
Yeah.
go.
One thing that kind of supports that theory a little bit is, so I actually proposed to her at a show in Madison,
Nice.
in front of like, how many people were there? Like 60, 70.
Few.
Yeah, there
Quite a few.
were a good number of people there, maybe even 100. I don't
I have
know.
it on film. I'm
But,
assuming we'll count.
Uh,
Count
it
later.
was that was what, 3 years ago, 2021, I think
yeah,
it
your
was.
birthday, 2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty cool. But I remember after that show is kind of when I started like slowly not doing shows anymore.
Mm.
I think after that show I did maybe like 3 or 4 more, and they were mostly smaller, and then I kind of just faded into history. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of find that interesting.
Yeah, it's weird how life works, and I think God allows certain things to happen for your good. You know, I think that of course is sometimes hard because we love the people. You know, we really do. They're just so kind to us, but I
Yeah,
think,
we went to a show just a couple months ago. You know, but whenever we go, we just kind of like
we have such
hang
a
out
great
and have
time. Yeah.
have like 1 or 2 drinks, and then by like 12:30 we're like, all right, I'm done.
I'm 22
whereas
years old. and I'm
whereas
like,
in the
"Nope, I'm
past
done."
whereas in the past
Yeah.
we'd be up till like, I don't know, 11
3
a.m. the
and-
next day.
Oh well, that
I've
3
done
a.m.
that.
and
It
then
was
the after
horrible.
parties,
Yeah.
which is just like I said, it's just not sustainable.
Now
I
if
mean,
someone says to
Yeah.
me after party, I'm like, no.
Yeah. It's
I'm
just-
leaving like an hour and a half before the show ends, actually.
It's like you
Yeah.
say after party to me, and I'm already physically tired just hearing those words.
that word.
If by after
what?
party you mean go home and go to sleep, then I'm in.
There you go.
Yeah, that's how we
After party.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can totally relate with that. With when it comes to the party scene, I did, stay up till 3, or sometimes so like after party, go to someone's house and stay up till 6 in the morning, and sometimes like that would be on a Saturday, and then I had to work a Sunday in the morning at like 9. So I remember at some nights I would party all night and then sleep for a couple hours. And waking up and I'm like, I feel great, but I'm still drunk.
Yeah.
And then going to work. And then one of my worst days was I slept like 2 hours. And I remember drinking by myself an entire bottle of vodka. And, thinking, oh, this is just regular behavior, right? So I go to work and I'm like, you know what? I feel great. And I'm start working. And then around 2 p.m., that's when like the hangover hits me, like the waking hangover.
Yeah.
And then I'm just feeling just horrible. And then I'm drinking Monsters, I'm drinking coffee, and I remember, and I will always remember what this other cook told me. I'm there complaining about being hungover and feeling terrible, and I was like, God help me, God help me. And he said, God is not going to help you with a hangover. And I was like, that's fair. That's
kind of
totally
true.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and I mentioned before previous podcast that there were some nights that I just don't remember getting home and just how did I make it home?
Yeah.
It's blacking out and by the grace of God, nothing happened to me or I didn't, kill
Literally,
anybody
thank
else.
I had a
Yeah,
I had a night
literally.
like that
Yeah.
once. There was a hip hop group called Flatbush Zombies that my buddies and I really liked. Very incredibly dark music. But I thought since I produced music, I used to make hip hop music too, and I really appreciated the beats that they would make, even though the lyrics were just. I mean, we every now and then we'll go back and listen to it just for the nostalgia, and it's just
raunchy,
like
I would say, yeah.
wow, this music is just so incredibly dark. I can't believe I used to listen to this,
Mm.
And anyway, they were playing in Milwaukee, and we went there, and I remember I think I got drunk before we even went in the building, and I got in and I ran into a girl that I went to college with, and she had some weed on her. So I got what we call in the partying scene crossfaded.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was high and drunk.
Yep.
And I remember I was so messed up that I went to the bathroom. And this is like probably an hour into the concert, even if that,
Yeah.
I think. And I go into the restroom and I sit in the stall and I fall asleep in the middle of
Isn't that
Milwaukee
something?
with like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine the kind of, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to be, you know, rude to anybody, but you can imagine the crowd that would go to a hip hop show like this. Someone could have robbed me, killed me. I don't know. Could have been really bad.
Literally,
But
thank God
I
nothing
literally,
happened, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a security guard came and woke me up at the end of the show, and I managed to actually find my friends who drove me there. And I remember just laying in the
At
back
the end
seat.
of the show.
Yeah, I remember.
Wow.
I remember getting in the car and just like laying in the back seat, like, how am I alive?
Wow.
It was very scary.
Whew.
I'm surprised I didn't wake up at that point, but I didn't. So
Yeah.
Isn't
Wow.
that something? And I just see how different Ethan is now, and it just hearing that story, it makes me think of like that is just not him. I mean, that's a whole different person, and that's what I really love about faith is that it just makes us more, you know, His grace is new is every, you know,
Mm-hmm.
new every day. And those stories that, you know, we tell are just our old self, and I just love how God can change anybody
Mhm.
in any situation and really meet you where you're at. So, I mean, at a sketchy parking lot in Milwaukee,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he, you know, hindsight
He-
2020. Literally, thank God nothing happened to you because
Yeah.
we wouldn't be here today
He
talking
stood.
on this
He
podcast.
stood right next. He stood right next to you,
Yep.
Ethan, in that bathroom for probably what 4 or 5 hours that the concert was going on.
Yeah, hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember how long it was, but yeah. Yeah,
That's-
I have
I
no
feel
idea how
that.
how something bad didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I assumed I locked the door, but like, you know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Wow. That's in. You know, I just always share this in other podcasts, but you know, I remember the time that I was so drunk that I get my wits about myself for a little bit while driving in the highway, and my GPS says 90 minutes to destination, and I don't know where I'm going. So something tells me go back home. So I put like the latest GPS like closest to my house, and then I follow that, and then black out. Wake
Oh,
up,
no.
wake up in my room thinking, how did I get here?
Wow.
And you know, it makes me think of I saw this meme of like Jesus, and he's like standing right next to like a wall full of steering wheels, and then it said all the wheels that Jesus has taken, because we said that saying, Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah, that's funny.
He's taken a lot of them. I feel like he's never early, never late, but he is working overtime, I think, on some people. Not biblical, but, you know, I feel like he is. Yeah.
A wizard is never late, Mr. Baggins.
Spoken from the true lovely nerd himself.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with
Exactly.
that. Appreciate
Nerds
that.
are green flags, I'll put
Exactly.
it that way.
Nerds are some of the most interesting people I know.
Exactly.
Nerds run
I
the world,
agree.
man.
So, yeah.
I agree.
I mean, look at Bill Gates.
Look
I
at
mean, that guy's
Tesla.
creepy, but like, you know, Mark Zuckerberg,
Yeah.
because they're all nerds.
Elon Musk.
Yep.
Yeah. Did I tell you I
Yeah.
2 Cybertrucks in a row?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like at the entrance of Arches National Park.
Yeah. I
And
saw
then one
that
is coming
video.
out, and then I'm like, I gotta record it. And then another one, right
Once in a
next to it. I was like,
lifetime.
what?
This is
2
lucky,
Cybertrucks.
lucky day.
Yeah, they
Oh
said
my
they're
goodness.
bulletproof. Are they?
I don't think we should try and see that, you know, see that to come to fruition, you know.
They're like, hey, dude, can you show your truck?
You
See if
show
it's-
me.
See if it's real.
I'm gonna press X to doubt.
What was you remember when they were like showcasing it? That they're like, oh, it is the glass is bulletproof, and then they crack it right away.
They
Like,
did not prepare.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one, but there is a YouTube channel. Hashtag not sponsored. There's a YouTube channel named Cold Fusion that I really like,
Yeah.
and he did a presentation on can't remember the guy's name, but like he claimed to have made a like a semi truck that runs on like nitrogen or something.
Yeah, nitrogen, hydrogen.
Yeah, and it was like NO2 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly.
And it
the
just makes
chemical.
water like on the.
I don't know, but basically it was all a scam, and the truck that they had to show off didn't even like they had to wheel it in, like it didn't drive.
Didn't they make only
and then
like
and
one
then
of them,
and
I
then
think?
for the
Yeah.
for the advertisement that they made of the truck, quote unquote driving,
Mhm.
they literally had just like pushed it down a hill. And I wish I could remember the name
Wow.
of
Yeah.
the company.
I
Morgan,
think
you say
I think
something
I know
while I
what
look
you're
it up.
talking about.
Yeah,
I think they
absolutely.
made a documentary on them.
Yes.
Like it's a short YouTube video about.
Isn't that amazing? You push it down a hill and then you record it and go, "Yep, this works,"
Yeah.
and then sell them.
We don't-
And
Even
and
though
then
we don't
don't
have the
make more.
technology or the resources, but
Yeah,
you,
you
know.
make one or two. If
Exactly.
the other one doesn't work, then you can show
I
the
will
other
find
one
it. Hang on.
Yeah.
That is so good.
So, let's I like how we're talking about our party days and how
Yeah.
we kind of found identity in that, and it is interesting how we cling to things that we feel like we belong, right? Like the party scene, the drugs, the lifestyle, and like you said, Ethan, you were looking to impress a girl, so you find out.
I think it was that, and also in high school, I kind of made some friends toward the end of high school, but all throughout elementary school, middle school, and for the majority of high school, I had a really hard time making friends, and it was all my fault. Not anybody else's fault. I got bullied quite a bit, which I totally brought on myself. And I think part of the reason why I fell so hard into the partying and drug scene is because you feel like you're making friends, which you kind of are, but
Do you
not
hear
really.
that?
Yeah, I
a
hear
little
that too.
bit, yeah.
I wonder what that. Oh, it stopped. Never mind.
Yeah.
It was me. Who knows?
So, yeah, I think I fell really hard into it, not only just to try to find a girlfriend, which I was trying very hard to find, which is funny because, the listeners don't know this, but I actually found my wife outside of the partying scene.
At church.
She kept liking my stuff on social media. So I messaged her and I'm like, hey,
If you can see, I'm blushing.
you should.
I'm turning into a tomato.
you should hang
Into
out
a
with me.
tomato.
Hey, it worked.
It did.
It worked.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Did it work? Yeah.
Yeah, I recommend anyone out there, single guys and girls, don't try to find your wife or husband at the bar. I mean, not impossible, but
Sure.
try to find them at church. I would say church groups.
So it's like what's his name? I forget. Ed Sheeran.
Oh.
The club isn't the best place to find love.
Yeah,
So the
it
bar
isn't,
where
in my
yeah.
opinion.
Oh yeah,
It
that's
is
a good
not
song.
the best place.
Ooh.
Totally right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rock on, dude.
Yeah.
So you met her at church, and you were friends. Childhood friends. But then, like when you start dating, you bring her into the party scene. Were you?
So-
Kinda, sorta.
so
we
no,
weren't
we
really
actually weren't-
too much of friends.
No, we didn't really
Yeah.
talk at all. She basically was my stalker on social media.
Okay. Look straight.
your wife
Silly
now?
goose. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I got Stockholm syndrome. and-
I mean,
Oh,
we
man.
weren't like childhood friends, but I knew a lot of people that he knew. I mean,
Ethan,
it's a
if you
small
need
town.
help, blink twice.
He's very poised. I hope.
Yeah.
Love don't blink. I would say, yeah. I mean, we knew a lot of the same people, because churches and whatnot and school events.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. I feel like it was kind of meant to be. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't mind. I don't know.
Yeah. I
It was
mean,
meant to be.
like,
God works in mysterious ways.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. And it just so happens that I liked a few, of his social media posts. I mean, he's quite a handsome looking guy. I might, if I do say so
He's
for
pretty
himself.
handsome,
I know, eh?
I'd say.
Not bad looking.
you should have seen me when I was 18, bro.
Is that
What are you
a good
saying?
thing?
You were handsomer, or
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
what-
dude. I was like a male model, dude.
Okay.
if I say so myself?
If I-
Today I'm not. I am not that today. I gained
Whatever.
like 60 pounds.
Whatever.
60 pounds.
Probably yeah. When I wrestled all throughout high school and middle school, and my last wrestling match was in the 182 pound weight class, and then I went all the way up to, I think my peak weight was like 240, but then I dropped 20 recently. So
There you go.
So I do see a lot of people that like, a lot of guys that are wrestlers that they get like cauliflower ears that never happen.
You have to do a lot of wrestling or grappling without headgear for that to happen. In high school, they make you wear it for meets and tournaments and stuff. And then in the wrestling room, whenever we would do live wrestling, we would have to wear headgear. So I didn't get it, but I'm working on it though. We're at jiu-jitsu class,
Yeah.
2 or 3 times a week. So I'll get there. Get those
Awesome.
big puffy ears.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've always seen it. I met a guy like that one time, and we had a lot of great debates. He was super Catholic. I called him Captain Catholic because he was blue-eyed, blonde, and
Oh
he
my
was
goodness.
super Catholic. So we had a really good debate. I really liked the guy, but we kind of stopped work. I stopped working at the place, and then he went a different way. So I actually he didn't have social media, so there was no way for me to like follow him. It never occurred to me, hey, do you have a phone number? Nowadays it's like, hey, can I follow you on blah blah blah?
Instagram, Facebook, and
Yeah.
then that's it. You're like, oh, that's about
Exactly.
it.
Like people don't have phone numbers anymore.
But everybody has a phone, which is funny. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my
Exactly.
goodness, that is so funny.
And so now, okay, let's transition the conversation from our party scenes and party days. Now in the day and the today, let's say, what are we grateful for, and what lessons did we learn along the way, and how did Jesus teach you these things by following him?
Exactly.
I'm very grateful that nothing horrible happened to me during the partying and drugs phase, because man, there were so many opportunities for really, really bad things to happen to me. You know, having a criminal record, you know, a woman doing something bad to me, you know, so many bad things could have happened.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful that I'm here today. It's hard for me to say, like, you know, I'm really glad I got away with it. Is kind of what I'm saying. But the Lord kept me safe, brought me around, you know, back to my roots, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And I'm sorry, was the last part of the question was how I got there?
No, let's say what would you say to a young man like you who's going through the same thing? What advice would you tell him?
That's a great question. I would say you really should reconsider and try to adjust your sphere of influence is kind of what I started to do. Back then, my sphere of influence was people who party, people who do drugs, and so of course that's what I did. Right? It was too easy. But over time, thankfully, I've adjusted that, and now I don't really hang out with too many people that do stuff like that. Really, any. I mean, I have a buddy who will, you know, I think our friend. I'm not gonna say his name. Don't worry. He'll like smoke weed once in a while. But you know, I think he smokes legal stuff anyway. So, but you know, most of my friends are, you know, either in good relationships or working towards those, and you know, we're able to criticize each other constantly,
Good
doing
feedback,
self-improvement.
everything. Yeah, absolutely.
And those are the kinds of people that I want to surround myself with, and that's what you should do if you're in a similar situation to what I was in, is start to adjust that sphere of influence and try to find friends that will support you, rebuke you lovingly and respectfully. And the best place to find those people, I would say, are probably at church, honestly, because it's really hard to beat the values you get from Christianity.
Exactly.
So I would say go to your church more, get involved, go to youth group, whatever you got to do, meet new people, and make some real solid friends. And hopefully, you know, your example will bring some of the buddies you have now with you.
Exactly.
but if not, then
Yeah, be a shining light for
you're better
people.
off.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
That's great. How about you, Morgan? Same questions to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one was about being grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What are you grateful for? That you learned there, and that now you see that you didn't back then, probably.
Wow. I guess I'm very grateful for what I was taught in school, and I obviously, like what he said, came from a Christian private school, so that education was just really, really it really transformed me. And all those Bible passages, they're still in my head to this day, and my parents would help me memorize it, and friends, and those have stuck with me through adulthood and really got me through some, good and bad moments.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're in, Wells churches, we do a lot of repetition with, like the blessing or creeds or the Lord's Prayer, and it's very necessary, I think, to just have that to come back to. And there was a sermon that Pastor Mike gave, and it was about the blessing. I believe it was by him, if I'm not mistaken. And really broke it down.
#blessings.
There you go.
I remember that. Yeah.
Exactly. That really opened my eyes to how God has kept me, how God is shining upon me, how God is so gracious to me. And I didn't know it as a 7-year-old when you repeat it after, when a teacher said it or when a pastor said it. So I think I'm so grateful that was instilled in my brain at a young age, and that I was surrounded by really good people, not perfect people, but good people. And my parents, they really wanted Jesus in my life, and that was the main thing, even though they're divorced. And I have a stepdad as well, and he's loves Jesus as well. So that was I'm very grateful for that, and that has carried me, like I said, through adulthood. And oh my goodness, what would I say to my younger self?
A young woman that is probably going through the same thing.
Yeah.
What would you?
I would say, maybe to collect my thoughts for a second, but I guess I would say it really does get better once you continue to hold on to Christ. I mean, that is the main thing, because apart from that, I mean, just like Ethan and I said, I mean, apart from that, there's darkness, there's godlessness, there's people who are yearning for more, yearning for love, yearning for friendship, yearning for happiness, or yearning for it. And I feel like a lot of people learn very quickly that it is so not sustainable. Like I said, I guess that's my word today, but
without a faith, because
Exactly.
you could argue that other faiths, like
you could have faith in anything.
in Hinduism
right?
or
Yeah.
Buddhism,
But
they
the
can
true
all
faith.
they secularism is the only faith that leads to hopelessness. And Christianity is the only faith that says you don't have to be hopeless and you don't have to work for it.
Yeah, because Jesus did that, and that's so important to instill in any young child, that they are loved, that they are so important, that they are enough because of who God says they are. And I would say that just keep reading those passages and really absorbing it rather than pushing it away, I would say. And because I think if I really, really understood it, I'm not sure, I mean, maybe we still would have been in some, I say we, looking at my husband, but we would have maybe not have been in those situations or really reconsidered being in those dark places. But I guess I would say to a younger woman that culture is just, it fades so quickly, trends come and go, life is so short, so really hate to be like YOLO. I don't want to say it like that, but
Do the
so
opposite of
cringy.
YOLO.
Really, I mean, God is the only one you should be clinging on to. And what he says is just so much more than what anybody else will give you, literally in a drug form, in a conversation, in a relationship that you think will, last because they're cool or they're, or whatever you have it. But yeah, very grateful for that in my life, that I had Jesus so young. Yeah.
Any favorite passages that you memorize from like a kid? Anything that sticks out in your mind right now?
Yeah, I would say my confirmation verse. I know that's a little Wellsy of me to say, but I would say my confirmation verse. Yeah, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Whom shall I be afraid? And that one has got me through a lot. I think it's so interesting because in the Bible it says this, like, Jesus is our stronghold. That's the ultimate stronghold we should have. But God demolishes the negative ones, which is so fascinating, I think. And giving Pastor Mike, I guess,
Shout out to Pastor
airtime.
Mike.
But another sermon he had was about demolishing those strongholds you have in yourself. And
I remember that one specifically.
And that one, of course, I mean, it was just
with a
dramatic.
giant Bible. You remember
Yes.
that? Yeah.
It was half the size of me,
Yeah.
I guess. Crazy. And I think it's just our pastors in general, Pastor Michael and Pastor Mike, they give just such great, just they have so much wisdom, and they give it very clearly. And whenever they speak, it really speaks to me, I feel like. And that one specifically, I guess his, Pastor Mike's sermon, like I'm mentioning, it really struck a chord. And I'm like, oh, where else in the Bible does it have strongholds? Where can I get rid of them? Or where can I see it in me? And they're directing it to the Bible the Bible rebukes and redirects and corrects and all that other good stuff. So, I mean, very, very grateful that Bible passage has been a part of my life, and it's on my mirror to this day. So very happy I can look in the mirror and look at that, and he's my stronghold. I don't know about anybody else, but
Yeah. Amen.
yeah,
I like
there
that's
you go.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question, guys. I want to ask you. I know I asked this before in the group, but who is Jesus to you?
What do you think, love? Who's Jesus to you?
I don't remember what my answer was
Oh, it's fine.
because I probably pulled my original answer out of my butt.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
You're on the spot now. Mic's on.
There we go.
This thing on?
Testing.
I think one of the things I liked, one of the things that I like about Christianity is how it gives you identity. Because if you're a secular person, in reality you're nothing. Because eventually the world is going to, the sun's going to go out, and the earth will freeze over and shatter, or whatever happens to the earth at the end of time. And nobody will remember anything you did, what your name was, who you are, nothing. But if you do believe in Jesus and you are a Christian, that's not the case, because when you die, you will go to heaven, and God will create a new heaven and a new earth. So I think that identity is one of the things that gives me so much hope for the future, no matter what happens. And I think that's what I would say Jesus is to me.
All right, that's beautiful. Thank you. How about you, Morgan?
Wow. I guess it's a loaded answer, but to me, personally, what he means to me is everything all in one. He's peace, he's a safe space, he's our heavenly Father. I am so blessed to have two, my stepfather and my father, but at the end of the day, he's my heavenly Father, and who he says I am, And so if I'm low, he calls me, confident and beautiful and amazing, but when I need it the most. And I think that God is really, he's everything. I don't know where I would be without him. So I think he's just I'm very blessed that he's such a big part of my life, and I would love for more people to just realize that is it. Once he becomes everything to you, really nothing else really matters. So yeah, he's a good safe space for me. Yeah.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
great. Okay, let's start playing. Any final thoughts? Any sort of. I know we talked about, like, what would you say to anybody who's in your situation, like a younger man, a younger woman. Any final words of encouragement to anybody who's probably wondering, I've been living this kind of lifestyle, but it's probably not it, and I'm not finding that fulfillment, and they kind of started to become a little bit curious about a God. But you know in this culture that if you say that you want to look for Jesus, you're gonna be made fun of. You're gonna be like, okay, that's kind of naive.
Right.
What do you believe in those fairy tales? Any sort of encouragement to people who are curious and they want to pursue that, but are kind of afraid of what people are gonna say about them.
That
What would
all
you guys say?
that all changes when you join a good Christian community. The common trope is, a single twig you can snap, with very easily. But if you have a bundle of twigs, incredibly hard to break. And if you were to join a very strong Christian community, you will not only feel more confident in that as you learn more, but as you learn more, when people start to have questions, you'll have answers, and that's, I think, an important thing to remember if you are thinking about it. First of all, do it. You won't regret it. I don't regret for a second leaving my past life behind and becoming a good Christian husband and going to church every Sunday. I'll never go back. I don't miss it one bit. It is not even close to as fulfilling as leading a good, wholesome Christian life as much as possible. I think it was you that told me the other day, once you truly become a believer, you'll never go back. And I think that's probably pretty factual. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Seeing the good that Jesus offers when we really open ourselves to it, it's he removes the scales from our eyes and we see, we're like, oh, we were blind. Yeah. What about you, Morgan?
I apologize. The question was any kind of random thoughts, or
no? What kind of encouragement would you that to somebody who's kind of curious but kind of hesitant on because what would people say about me, or they're discouraging, or like, why do you believe in those things? Who's the hesitant of doing the jump? What would you say?
It's funny because I am the person that would be hesitant. I'm skeptical about a lot of things, and I'm usually not the person to jump both feet in, but this is the one area I will say with people, I guess I will say as context, I have a little bit of anxiety with life, and being a Christian, that is
only a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'd say with someone who, I guess if they're in my situation, if they have anxiety and just don't know which way to turn and have all these questions and what ifs and all that, I will say that this is the one area you want to jump both feet in and not just dip your toes and go, because that is just it won't last if you just go to church once, maybe if you could try to convince yourself, but and just do it. And I know it's probably not sponsored by Nike, but just do it. I mean, we we were skeptical about going to church every weekend, and I'd say with somebody that is in a similar situation like we were in, we just met with the Pastor Michael, who was so kind, and he just walked us through any questions that we had and just welcomed us with open arms, and we were those people, I will say. So if you are skeptical, just jump both feet in. You really won't regret it. You'll find so many more amazing people along the way. So
it gets a lot easier to go to church every weekend when you're not out partying.
Exactly.
Until 2 in the morning.
To get up in the morning.
Or later. Usually later.
I just think that's life. I think you have to. There are some things that are very black and white, in my opinion, and that was one of them for us, and maybe for other people.
How long have you guys been going to the core now?
We actually went in 2020.
I've been to the core a few times.
2021, I think, for a Good Friday service. And then in December, we wanted to become full members. So in January 2023, we decided to make it our church home.
Okay.
Yeah, so almost.
Yeah, because I remember seeing, like, I started seeing you guys, I think it was like right when they started opening the openings for life groups.
Yeah.
And then I remember seeing you guys volunteering.
Yeah.
And then I knew that you guys jumped on that group because my group filled up in like the first 24 hours.
Yeah, it was quick.
Yeah,
I will say that sign up was
really,
very
really quick. And then I remember seeing you guys. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Never seen you guys before. So
yeah, we were in a life group, another life group, and then I really enjoyed it. It was so fascinating and just wonderful people. And we're like, all right, let's do this again. And we found you guys, and it's just been such a blessing. So people who are in any walk of life, I would encourage, just I was really nervous. Was very nervous, but it's just a conversation. Just start with a conversation. Start with a hi, how you doing, and how'd you come to the core? You know, so it was really fascinating to learn that.
And to let them know that, you know, Jesus is not a scary character that is waiting to judge you,
Exactly.
to wave his
Throw a
finger in front of you.
lightning bolt.
Exactly.
from
The only
heaven.
people that do that are sinful humans.
Yeah,
Who gave him that image.
exactly.
It-
Yeah.
And I think it stems from our own guilt.
Yes.
Yeah.
We really paint a picture of him. Like, you know, anybody, for example, if they have a tough relationship with somebody, they are mad at the person who created it. Well, of course, that would be God in my mind, and I believe that. So I think that a lot of people get mad at the what created it rather than the sin of it, you know, the sin. And that's so, to me, that's fascinating because
They get mad at God instead of their own human nature.
exactly. Yeah, because we are sinful, and that's the.
It's like you said, when you get mad at a relationship, you're like, oh, who created a relationship? Well, God did create relationships, but we corrupted them.
But that's our own.
Yeah.
That's our own, like, opinion about it. Well, what does God say? I should just go back to what does God say? What does God say? And
What does the Bible say?
That's good.
he's chuckling on the inside.
He's chuckling on the inside.
He's like, that's good.
That's what I
good.
read. Sometimes when I said a joke, he just like looks at me and he says, "That's funny." Like, I don't know. That's not funny.
Me, Ethan, the poised man himself.
That song.
Yeah.
Brings back memories.
I was at.
Oh my goodness.
My high school I went to was FEL.
Yeah.
Fox Valley Lutheran
Yeah.
Foxes. So
That was quite a time.
so that was
Quite a time.
that was the thing.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start landing the plane here. You said you had a fun fact. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right. Fun
Drum
facts
roll.
with the Brett Slides. Go ahead, Ethan.
So, I get this so often, but I even heard you do it the other day. So I have to put you on blast here. I'm sorry. So
Oh boy. Here we go.
a CPU does not equal a computer. A CPU stands for Central Processing Unit, the processor. Okay, the computer is made up of basically 7 to 8 different parts, and one of those parts is the processor, or CPU, Central Processing Unit. It's actually interesting how often I hear people say, "Oh yeah, my CPU broke the other day," but they really mean their computer.
Yeah.
You know. And again, I'm sorry to put you on blast.
Yeah. Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you said you mentioned a computer, but you referred to it as a CPU.
I did.
It's okay.
Oh, wow.
I hear that all the time, and I don't
Yeah.
fault anybody for it because I walk into a mechanic shop, and I feel like an idiot because I don't know anything about cars.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. But just for all you guys out there, if you're referring to a computer as a CPU, it's the same as referring to your car as an engine. Just so you know.
I knew the fun fact would be something with computers.
It's not.
I love that.
I love it. Yeah. It's not something
Educational.
that
I love
everybody-
that.
Yeah, it's good to learn something.
But most people, if someone says that to me, like they say, "Oh my, I bought a new CPU the other day," and it's,
Ethan chuckles
I don't say
inside.
I don't say
Chuckles.
anything usually because, but
You're just too
You're just
nice.
thinking, "Oh, you fool."
Oh,
no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's just that. There's your fun fact. Just
there we go.
it's not a CPU, it's a
Yeah.
computer.
Okay. I think that's a great way to end it. Thank you guys for being here
Thank
tonight.
you so much.
It's been a lot of fun, and getting to know you a little better. So yeah.
Thank you so much. We're so blessed. We're so grateful. that we can
Yeah, this has been really fun. Thanks for
All right,
having me.
yeah, thank you so much. And for any listeners out there, if you call on the name of the Lord Jesus, and then wherever you are, whatever you're going through, and however your feelings are towards Him, call on Him, and He's going to show up. I promise you that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you next time.